Hello, 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 and welcome to the 29th episode of the Collective Spotlight. Yes, that is correct. Our little show has gone to 29 episodes now, 29 issues. We're well on our way to that 50th anniversary issue. Without further ado, this show always started as an independent comics creator show. And we're right back at our core here on episode 29 with the creative team behind Voyage, The Call, which just ended on Kickstarter recently. We have writer Brett Melograno with us. How are you doing, Brett?
Hi, how's it going, everyone?
Good. And then artist Zackary, I hope I'm saying this right, Marois?
No, you got it. What's up, guys?
What's up, Zach? How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Yeah.
So, before I even go into the book, you guys literally just ended on Sunday, I believe the campaign ended. It got funded. Honestly, I talked to Brett about a week ago, and you guys were still about $1,000 short. And I said, a lot of people tell me that last 24 hours, the bump comes in, and you guys absolutely blew past your goal during those last 2 days. What was it like for you guys to run your first Kickstarter and see it fund?
Man, from my perspective, it was just like Brett said to me when he called me up, it's surreal. You know, we just got out of the school a year ago, and from the Joe Cuber school. So I wanted to go ahead and just jump into something, and I wanted to make a book. Jumping onto Kickstarter, fresh onto that scene. I haven't even backed as many projects as I'd like to, because of finances, and there was a lot going against me when it came down to all the variables, but it funded, and I'm happy that it did. And my goal now is to make sure that I give a little bit of extra for everybody who pledged.
Awesome. And Brett, I know me and you had even talked
Right.
The week before, and it was like, hey, because we're working as a retailer and our customers will want the book, what is the plan if worst case scenario something doesn't happen? And you had a plan B, but you guys were able to do it. You went far past it after it was all said and done. So yeah, what was that like those last couple hours?
I mean, it was definitely like I told Zach, the whole thing is surreal basically, because like Zach said, we had a few things going against us, like we said, we came from the school, the Joe Cuber school, and they kind of mention things to you, but they don't really tell you the exact way to do things. So doing a Kickstarter, it was something completely, it was really out of the frying pan into the fire kind of thing. So it was, it was definitely a little nerve-wracking at some point and everything. But like you said, those last couple hours, I think it was at midnight or something. I got a text. Well, I got it the next morning from Zach that that we were funded, and with 2 days to spare basically. And I was just like over the moon, because we didn't we didn't think we would go. Like, we were worried, but at the same point we had a feeling that it was going to succeed, because like we said, I think that we're offering people something different than just your, typical, flights and tights kind of book. So I think that there's definitely people who want to read something new and something different. So we definitely always had a feeling, sure, the goal was a little high, but then again, there's always that adage, shoot for the stars. And we did it.
Yeah. And I mean, your guys' product, especially being on Kickstarter, a $10 book for 32 pages on Kickstarter, that's average, if not on the lower end. There are people with $15 and $20 books on Kickstarter. So I think you guys had the right price point and everything. I mean, this was, for both of you guys, was this your first Kickstarter project as creators?
Yes. Yeah. The thing is, I self-published a comic graphic novel with 23 other Cuber School students with the same character. But I did that while I was in school as a second-year student, and it printed when I was a third-year student. So it was a year of making that book, and it was just, that was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on that aspect, but I never delved into Kickstarter. And if looking at how the comic industry is, how from now, and who knows what it's going to be like within the next few years from now. I needed to understand how Kickstarter was run. I needed to understand how these crowdfunding campaigns, because the indie field, in my opinion, is going to be the one that's going to start to get the spotlight on more so than Marvel, DC, and all those other standard superhero characters.
Yeah.
Like they've had their light. They have had their spotlight on them for so long. It's starting to, in my opinion, I feel like it's starting to delve away into independent creations.
Without a doubt. I mean, any customer that's come into our store has seen just in the last year, the independent shelf double went from being one full-fledged rack to being absolutely two full-fledged racks. And we have you guys playing in the store, actually, but which reminds me, let's for a second move away from Kickstarter and actually talk about the book. The book is called Voyage, the Call. Tell me, it's a sci-fi book. As I went through some of the synopsises, you guys have some cool things in there, like sleep deprivation and nightmares and things like that. So it's like a sci-fi horror. But give us the elevator pitch so that everybody kind of gets an idea of what you guys are working on.
Brett, this is on you, man. You're so good with this.
All right. Well, basically, the story is it's a standalone story. It follows the adventures of our protagonist, Sonderon, which is a intergalactic space explorer. And yeah, like we said, for weeks on weeks, he's been, having these visions and these dreams that are keeping him awake at night. And he's just feeling this pull. Something is calling to him, basically. So he decides to just kind of put an end to it and figure out finally what is it that I'm being called toward. And through the book, he runs into a kind of a bog witch, and then he runs into he goes to a starship graveyard, and from there he sort of learns about where this call may be coming from. And then from there, he literally gets sucked into this whole, alternate world. And, he's going to have to face some demons within to actually survive.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about your main character. What is his name again? Is it?
Sonderon.
Sonderon.
So this character, I've had this character since I was like in 7th grade. I've always just been perfecting it ever since. Then when I went into the Joe Kubert school is when I really started to like crack down more and more to get the story solid. And it wasn't until 3rd year at the Joe Kubert school is when it finally got perfect. I was like, this is it. This is the story. And I wouldn't have gotten that help if it wasn't for Brett. Like that story, like once I asked Brett for help, I'm like, can you help? Because Brett is a phenomenal writer. He's great when it comes to ideas on the spot. And he just knows how to like make everything fall in sync. And knowing that, I was like, Brett, can you help me figure this out? And he wrote it using what I had already. And he just came up with this whole thing, the whole hero's journey adventure using what I had. And it was amazing. And, oh my God, it's like I can't even explain because it's just beautiful. And when it comes to the story in itself, like who this character is, I'm going to let Brett, explain who this character is because like I said, Brett's awesome when it comes to like explaining the story.
Yeah, Brett, tell us a little bit about him. You mentioned that he's like an adventurer, an explorer, but tell us a little bit about like his persona.
Well, one of the things that I think Zach has kind of touched on is that he always told me this when we first met about Sonderon. He said that how many comics do you read where it's always seen through the eyes of a human, but it's never through the eyes of an alien? And I was like, you know what, you're right about that. Yeah, sure, you might have a Green Lantern story where it's like, a Kilowog story or something like that, but it's always about, Hal or John or something like that, So what Zach was, trying to say is that why don't we have a story about an alien, his adventures through his eyes, basically. So, the way we see Sonderon is he's sort of the way he comes from a world that has been shattered. If you go back through his mythology, his planet was shattered into 4 different quadrants with 4 different species. Not knowing, that this type of they're called Kemetans,
Okay.
and they don't know, from this one to this one to this one, and Sonderon comes from sort of the typical hunter-gatherer species of Kemetans, and he's always been sort of a rebel in some regards. He's more inquisitive than anything. He's always kind of wondered what's out beyond just the village line. And, basically in our mythology is that, he one day just decides to tempt fates and see what's beyond the village. And, then he just kind of ends up getting sucked into this whole, story where it's, above him, basically. He ends up being tasked with finding this mythical object that will hopefully unite his world. But the way I like to think of him also is sort of a reluctant space traveler, because he does have this wanderlust to see what's out there, but at the same time, this responsibility that's been put on him to find this artifact. He didn't really want this, and he doesn't even know what is it supposed to do and what he's supposed to do. So I think what's going to make the character of Sonderon speak out to people is we're going to see an adventure through the eyes of an alien, but he's not like a typical hero that's just going to charge right into battle. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. He's going to try and figure things out. And I think that's what's going to maybe resonate with people, because, a lot of times we don't really know what the right answer is. We don't know what the right path is. And I think that's what we're trying to show with Sonderon, is that you can be a hero, but you can sort of make it up as you go along, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're trying to show with this character.
It sounds, and this is coming from a guy who paid very little attention in English class all through grade school, but it seems like a very modern age tale of kind of Homer's Odyssey, but in space. Okay. In space. I mean, like I say, new age, because nobody would have thought of writing that, hundreds of years ago. But it sounds really awesome, and I have to then ask, what were your guys' influences in creating this? And I'll start with Zach, because he mentioned he's had this in his head since 7th grade. But what were the influences? Because this is sci-fi, this is a little horror. It's honestly a little bit of slice of life, alien slice of life, but slice of life. So what were your influences in this?
Well, now the reason why I say 7th grade is. I created his species right after I watched Green Lantern movie. As bad as that movie was, it inspired me to create like a knockoff character of a Blue Lantern Corps, and I was doing that with characters, and it wasn't until as time passed I was like, why create characters off of movies and things that's already there when I can just create something that's like completely my own and whatnot. And that's where I started really delving into creating off the top of my head, not looking at anything. The inspirations, I was, being a huge fan of Star Wars and all the sci-fi movies like Star Trek, Blade Runner and all those, Avatar, when that came out, it just fed into that, like, okay, this is the genre of where it's meant to be. And as I kept writing, I'm not really good at explaining things, but I know what I want. And I know I can imagine where this character is going to go and how it's going to be, but I just don't know the placing stones, to get me there. And like I said, I had struggles along the way with writing it more and more. And I had a dream the year before I went to the school of a person that was going to represent those quadrants that Brett was talking about. Okay. And I was like, this is okay. All right. So I'm going to focus on a character that's going to, at the time he was going to be like, hit the representation of that solar system. And then I kept writing it through and through. And then when I asked Brett for help it really just placed everything. And even though I created this character like at that time frame, Brett is just as much as the creator of this character as me on equal footing, because if it wasn't for the things he threw at that and make the character grounded, the character is going to fall through. It's like one of those crappy characters that people just like think of for 5 minutes and like, that's what it is. And they quickly rush the thing and the whole book falls through because it's unrealistic.
Mhm.
This character, Brett, just made it realistic. He made it to the point where you can connect to this character on so many levels. Whereas to me, like I know what he looks like and I know how to get him to like point A to point B, but it's really the nitty-gritty stuff in between. I'll go ahead and say, Brett, I have, like, for example, for this book, Voyage, the Call for Kickstarter, I was like, Brett, I have an idea. What if we have a Cthulhu-inspired story of Sonderon, right? And I would like to have him like go through like have a little bit of horror touch to it, instead of just sci-fi. And I'd like to have him go against like these creatures and stuff like that. And then Brett's like, okay, give me a second. He gives him like 2 days and he just writes this 25-page script story. It was absolutely beautiful. And this was just really, really good through and through. And it wasn't just because it fed into like the character, I'm like, and which made me excited, but the story was solid and I loved it. And it really made me feel the suspense of the story itself as I was reading the script. And that's why I felt this needs to be a Kickstarter, because I originally wanted the script to be Inktober pages where I was just drawing pages and posting on Instagram, but it was just so good that it needed to be something more. And that's why I wanted to make a Kickstarter. And I was like, I got right into that.
That's awesome. And Brett, it sounds like you did the task of trying to kind of humanize this alien character, because we keep talking about how he's grounded, which for most of us as readers, we just think of it as humanized because we are humans, and anything that's grounded to us is like that. What kind of inspired you when you were writing this character? Because we talked about how it's unique because it's through the eyes of an alien, but you still had to get him grounded and make him familiar to people who are not aliens like us. So what was some of your inspirations in writing this?
Well, I mean, definitely, like, Zach said, Star Wars, Star Trek, that definitely is always, a big influence when it comes to writing anything sci-fi, and I think also, I think to an extent also when I was doing this story, there was a little bit of like Indiana Jones I kind of felt in there too. I think that's another thing great with that character is that he's another one who, he's kind of like a reluctant kind of, adventurer, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he may start out with like one kind of goal in mind, but then, he ends up doing something completely different. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, he gets kind of sucked into these things where, so I kind of felt that like having those kind of points of reference, little pieces from that can really help, make us relate to that character, And then I also kind of just thought to, sort of a teenage mindset, if you want to say that, for Sonderon, because I think Zach and I had talked about this too, that as far as like, age wise and where he is in his tribe, he is sort of like, a teen, from that age, teens, 20s or something like that. He's not like a older experienced guy. So I try to write it in the sense that, he's a younger guy, and, and like we were saying, that he's out of his element on a lot of things. So I kind of just started to think about like, well, like the times that, say you go somewhere, like you've never been to, I don't know, New York, how do you feel, stepping into Times Square, and just seeing all the lights and everything like that around you. So, you try and take a little bit from, like you said, like established, characters and situations, but you also try and bring a little bit of your own experiences too, like how do you feel if you're going somewhere that you've never been, you get off the plane into the airport and you're like, okay, what's the first thing I have to do to survive, basically, you know? So I think those are the kind of things that I was kind of drawing on when I was putting together, you know, the story, and just kind of like Sonderon's mindset in this one.
Okay. Cool. I really like that. And I like the insight to the writer's mind is very, it's exactly what I actually wanted when I asked the question. So one of the other cool things that you have in this book is you have a backup story. I believe, is it called Slothman? It's about Slothman?
We're working on the title right now. Slothman is not my character. That's actually my roommate, Jack French. And that's I look at like people and look with their characters, and I always imagine it to be something more. And when Jack has like this really goofy but really interesting character, Slothman, it's, you know, that's something like, oh, that'd be a cool toy, or that story is going to be really, really cool. And I try to do that whenever I work on a project in general. I try to bring other people with their own ideas to be involved into that. I don't want it just to be about you know, one character. I want it to also include other people's characters as well, because I don't want to go ahead and, you know, as the years go by, I don't want it to go ahead and just be successful. I want the people that's around me with their characters, I want them to be the same level of success as I am, you know, because I see great ideas and great stories, and I don't want to have that go wasted, you know.
Okay, yeah. So did you meet him at the Kubert School as well? Like, is this an all Kubert School production here?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Awesome. So how did you and Brett? I mean, I know you guys were both at the Kubert School, but how did you guys meet? I'm not sure how the school's broken up, but is there? I'm guessing there's writing classes, there's art classes. Like, how did you guys get acquainted?
Go ahead, Brett.
Well, I first met Zach the way there's the school, obviously, and then there's the first year off campus sort of living quarters. I wouldn't call them apartments or you know, it's basically, it's called the mansion because it's like 100-year-old house and everything like that. So basically all the first years are, you know, kind of thrown into this old house. And you know, it was a great place in the sense because we got to meet everyone and we got to share ideas and just have a good time. And like I said, the first time I met Zach, he was downstairs working at his desk, and you know, because where he had his desk was like adjacent to the kitchen. And you know, I think I came in one evening to grab something to eat, and you know, Zach, we just started talking, and you know, he started showing me his portfolio of all the ideas that he had and everything, and we were just kind of bouncing ideas off and on. And then it actually ended up that we were in the same section for first year. They break up the year by sections. You know, there's 1A, 1B, 1C. You know, so we were in 1C. So you know, we spent the whole year together. You know, doing assignments and things like that. So, and then you know, as the years progressed, you know, we just always kind of, you know, would touch base here and there and stuff like that. And he would come over to the apartment, and so yeah, that's basically how we met, you know.
Nice. And I have to ask then, what drove each of you to enroll in the Kubert School? I mean, Brett, you're from Florida, are you not? I mean, Kubert School's up north. So what you know, what got you to go up there? And then same question for Zach. I mean, I'm sure he's a little closer at least, so I'm sure he saw ads. But Brett, really, what got a Florida guy like you out to the Kubert School?
Well, it's definitely something, you know, I think I said this on another show, is that, you know, life always has a weird way of taking you places. You know, when I was younger, you know, definitely art has always been an important thing in my life, you know, especially, you know, all the characters and everything like that, you know. And, you know, I always remember, you know, going to the shops with my dad and everything like that. So, you know, it was always something I was interested in, but you know, life just totally takes you on different paths and everything like that. So sometimes, things get put on the back burner. And that's what happened with me with the school. I actually first heard about the school in 2003 through Jan Duursma. She was the artist for Star Wars Republic when Dark Horse had the license. And I still to this day think that her run for the Clone Wars comic was probably some of the best comics that I've read. So I was always really impressed with her art. So I looked her up and I read that she went to the Kubert school. So, then it was the kind of thing where I was, intrigued by it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a place that just deals specifically in narrative art and everything. So, I made inquiries and stuff. But, again, life just, takes you on these different paths. So it wasn't until, 2017, I think it was, that I actually ended up getting a chance to, go enroll there. So, that's pretty much how I ended up there. Like I said, I'd known about it for a long time. It was something that I always had wanted to go there and sort of, hone a craft, and just happened to work at that time.
That's crazy though, but that's awesome, because that's like kind of a 15-year journey kind of coming full circle. Because you mentioned 2003, you kind of have this idea, it comes into your head, and then 17, you finally get the chance to do it. Right. Zach, tell me your Kubert school origin story.
So before I went to the school, I knew the school was around, but for some reason in my head, I thought it was across the country. I thought it was somewhere near California, So I never really thought about that place. I always knew I wanted to do comics for a living when I was in 5th grade, but it wasn't until I was 18 years old is when I started taking it seriously. When I got out of Job Corps, because I was a problem child, basically, put it simply. And I didn't want to go ahead, being in that Job Corps, sitting next to a lot of, unfavorable people. I was like, I don't fit in amongst these people. I'm definitely the black sheep, and I'm not cut out for that portion of life. So it really made me focus at that point to really crack down on comics. So once I got out of Job Corps, I was like, all right, I'm going to start making comics. So I started making a bunch, and it was very amateur. I'm telling you, it was really, really garbage stuff. But I was like, that's all I was doing. I was working at McDonald's, and I was working at Dairy Queen, and in between both jobs, I was working at McDonald's for 3rd shift. I was working at Dairy Queen 1st shift and 2nd shift. So in between that stuff, I wasn't even switching uniforms. I was just going back on my drafting table and just cranking out more pages and drawing a lot more. And I would just pass out on my table. And when I made these comics, I went to Boston Comic-Con in 2016. And it was an addiction. It was like, oh my God, man. Being as a fan is one thing. Buying comics, the stuff that you love, and meeting the people that create it, that's one thing. But the feeling being in the other side of that table and selling that merchandise that you yourself have made, that was so addicting to me that I was depressed when the convention was over. It was just too fast. That weekend was so fast. And I was just depressed for a weekend and do anything. Being at that convention, there was somebody who approached me and said that their daughter went to the Kubert school for summer. I didn't have any money at the time. So I started thinking, I want to get better at this. And I called up my mother, and I was like, can we go for the summer? Let's do it. And she's like, she was in New Hampshire, I was in Massachusetts. And she's like, all right, we'll meet up and we'll take you on a tour. And that was in 2017 in February. January, my mistake. We go down in New Jersey, we drive down, and it just blew me away. It was like the sales pitch worked, hook, line, and sinker. I walked in, it was everything I wanted to hear, it was everything I needed to hear. I'm like, this is it. This is where I want to go. And that was everything else just fell into place at that point. That's how I got in.
Wow. So, okay. First of all, Brett, I apologize. I'm now gonna talk to Zach for at least 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't even know how to say this. Your origin story. I guess, for lack of a better term. We're talking about comics. Your origin story is amazing, because I think many of us, especially in the nerdy and comic collecting community, weren't the best students growing up. You know, we were told not flattering things about ourselves, whether because of our study habits or what we liked, you know, DBZ, whatever. You know, there was a stigma to all of this as we grew up, and you're kind of that story of you didn't let those negative perceptions or those stigmas turn you away from it, and now you're kind of getting to do what you love for a living. Can you talk just a little bit about some of those, you know, trials and tribulations and the ups and downs and kind of not giving up on this? Because I feel like there's a lot to potentially learn from you.
So I've never mentioned this in any of your podcasts. When I was making those comics, I was making it with my older brother.
Okay.
And every day was mentally stressful because it was just not good being around him, because everything that I draw, he would just rip it. He would just destroy it. And I never got an opportunity to go ahead and make my own, like, put my ideas into the comic I was making. It was all his stuff.
Okay.
It was like what he said go, and if I tried to rebuttal that, he threatened to take me to court for the things that I tried to throw into that. You know, and it was very numbing, you know, that I could take any harsh criticism that anybody could throw at me, because he was the one that, you know, that would throw so much at me to the point where it was just ridiculous, you know. And when I went to the Kubrick school, I went in, I was like, I want to draw Spider-Man comics. I want to draw like the superheroes that I loved reading. And you know, just other people, not just my older brother, that was just, you know, very mentally stressful. It was other people around me, like, oh, why get to draw comics? Like, you suck. Like, you know, all this stuff. And it was ridiculous. Like, I didn't care. I threw thousands and thousands of dollars to get the stuff made before I went to the Cuban school. When I did go to the school, it was finally my way to get away from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And be around people that loved this stuff just as much as I did, and was willing to go ahead and sacrifice everything and anything to go ahead and grab it. And that was a lot. And, you know, my earliest memory of Brett, because my memory is trash. But the thing that really, like, it's moments with people really stick with me. The moment that, and I was mad at Brett for a second, but when he explained himself, it was just, it was little baby steps to get me to figure out, like, this is what I want to do with this comic. Like, I'm going to make it sooner than what I anticipated it to be in the future. It was first year. It was the earliest month, and I was a cocky kid. I was a very arrogant, cocky kid entering the school. And, you know, the teachers would break me down, and, you know, like the harsh criticism stuff. When I was talking to one of the instructors in first year, I was like, I want to draw Spider-Man. I have my own Spider-Man story. And I have, like, you know, I have like this cool Spider-Man story that other people haven't made yet, you know, and that's what I want to do. And Brett just, you know, called me out in class. He's like, why do you need to, like, go ahead and do a Spider-Man story? Like, everybody's got their own Spider-Man stories. Like, yours is no different than any other person who hasn't gotten their chance. Why not make your own? Like, why do you want to go ahead and come to the school and just, like, want to draw Spider-Man comics when you can leave the school and draw your own stuff? And it's people like that, like, that threw stuff like that at me. I was like, wow, okay. And there was another moment where in second year, my instructor, Max Fuchs, who's drawing, and excuse my language, but it's the title of the book, like, he has a comic called The Motherfucking Fucker. And he was working on that stuff. And in the first month of the second year, I was talking about, I'm going to make a comic the minute I get out of school. And the way he talks is funny. He's like, why can't you just make one now? You know, and I was like, oh, it's got to think about it. But when I went back at the dorm, I was like, yeah, why can't I just make one now? And that's what really pushed me a little bit further to make the anthology novel fast. Like, I was like, screw that, I'm gonna make it now. So that's a little bit of the, you know, trials and tribulations of that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, Brett, I'm sure you give me one of yours, because I mean, if you mentioned that life pulls you these ways, and, you know, 2003, you become aware of the school and I'm sure you wanted to try to get into the school, and then 2017 is when we actually make it happen.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that if things would have gone other ways, you might not be here writing comics right now? I'm sure there was a couple speed bumps between 2003 to 2017
that
you have to kind of overcome to get to where you're at now.
Yeah. I mean, geez. I mean, my mom getting diagnosed with breast cancer was a pretty big speed bump too. That kind of slowed down a lot of things, and then, like I said, just working, you just kind of, you get lost in that track sometimes, it's like, you just kind of, you get older, you start thinking about, just earning and trying to do things to that extent. But I will say that I think that definitely one of the biggest sort of catalysts that had me decide to go to the school this round was when my father passed in 2015. It was one of those things where I was at a job that I wasn't happy with. I was a police dispatcher, and long nights, and it wasn't really just it was kind of a toxic work environment.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom just said, like, well, what do you want to do to make you happy? So I just literally just went back to what I always loved, which was just comics and art and all the characters and stuff, and it was one of those things where it's like, like, you want to be able to make those things, you want to be able to tell stories, and I just felt that was the time, basically, that, like my mom said, I mean, I should really just try and find something that'll make me happy and stuff. And, I'm sure there's still going to be speed bumps along the way, but at least I felt that, going to the school and just kind of being in that environment where with people who have the same passions and loves for certain things, it can kind of help propel you into a new trajectory. And I feel that it's done that, in the sense that, if anything, it's the people that I've met, maybe not the school per se, but like I said, I think it's the people that I've met that have definitely helped me put me on the trajectory that I've always wanted to be. And for that, I always feel very grateful and thankful to Zach and my old roommates and everything like that, because I do feel that, with their help, I was able to kind of write the course of or go on the course that I always wanted to be, basically.
So the old cliche is do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Mm.
I know you guys, this is just the first Kickstarter, and everything like that. But is that kind of, do you guys feel like you're getting there right now? Has it been very enjoyable? I know there's stresses to creating a comic and getting it funded, but has it been an absolutely like enjoyable experience for you guys?
To throw this character out there, I like, my head was always been in the clouds. I always think big. And I'll struggle as much as I can to get that anything out there, and I want to bring the people with me. I imagine this character, I know it sounds funny and all, because it's so big, but I always imagine, it to be a toy line. I imagined it to be a cartoon. I imagined it to be on a show, Netflix, a movie, and thinking about that just gets me so excited that it just, no matter the things that that stresses me out to get the stuff made, I always think about that in the future. And it just imagine, dude, just think about that for a second. Like you get up in the morning, you go to Walmart, you go in the toy aisle, right? And you see your own character in a toy box. Like, the box is designed specific to the way that you had it. And it's not just your character, it's characters that your buddies have made too, like in that same brand box, and it's with all the pieces and stuff. Or just watching the show. That, like, there's an article Alan Moore talks about where he basically says he just slams on superhero movies, and he slams on like things in the big corporations because everybody knows how Alan Moore is.
Mm-hmm.
But he delves into make your own stuff. You grew up with the things that you like superheroes and stuff. You grew up with that, and it gave you that satisfaction of that escapism that you needed. But if you want to go into the field and stuff, make something your own. Don't like try to create things that are similar to that. Just try to make it as original as you can, because those are the things that will thrive. I mean, like you think of titles like The Boys, like stuff like that. I forget, was Happy. Yeah. Certain titles and now Resident Alien that's coming out the end of the month. You look at those, and those were just very obscure comics that not many people knew, and those are hitting it's on the screen. Everybody knows it now.
Yep.
That tells me that what I'm thinking of, what I dream about, is more and more of a reality than what it was 5 years ago. And why stop?
Absolutely. And Brett, I mean, you're the guy putting words to this character and everything. What would it mean to you, dude, if you guys got, I mean, I know you're only one issue in, but if you guys got optioned, or you guys got to do, because it happens a lot more in indie comics, like Zach said, now than it did 5-10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
But, I mean
yeah, I mean, that's one thing I definitely, or one of the many things I love about Zach is that, he always thinks big, and he's told me thinking about the toy line and everything like that. And his excitement for the character is infectious, is that because, that rubs off on me, because then I start thinking about like, oh, wow, like Sonderon in the packaging, and maybe there's this variant and stuff like that, so, I think it's definitely exciting. I mean, the whole process of the Kickstarter for me was really exciting when I would see Zach's pages, because it's one thing when you write the script and you see it one way, and then when you see the art and you're like, oh my God, like this is just something like I completely didn't expect. And, like, I like the way that he did it this way, because, like it was, I wasn't thinking this way, but works so much better, So seeing the pages in process, like that we put on the campaign page, has been a real joy for me, because just to see it, the words being put into visual is super rewarding, like we were talking on one of the pages in I hadn't written this, but when Sonderon goes on to the we'll call it like the demon ship or whatever, he's wearing this sort of space suit kind of armor thing, and I didn't even think about that. Like I was just kind of thinking it was just Sonderon in his regular hero outfit. But I was like, wow, that actually that was awesome. I loved it. So. Seeing things like that, I think as the writer is super rewarding, because, you see what your artist is able to do with your words and put it on the paper and make it feel like it's almost like, wow, it's something like I would say like, wow, this writer, it's almost like an out of body experience when you see it on the page, because you say to yourself, wow, that, like Zach put his stuff into it too. So it's really like a collaborative effort. And like I said, that's really enjoyable with the whole process. And, like Zach was saying, who knows, I mean, fingers crossed if, we keep going and stuff like that, that maybe, this will find an audience, and, like you said, who knows, toys, or, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, Netflix and all this other stuff, but, kind of the way people were saying like, oh, well, your $5,000 goal is a little high. Well, why not shoot for the moon kind of thing,
And actually, as we're wrapping up, that reminds me the whole reason you guys are here. So the collective did go ahead and do the store exclusive option. So we will have some copies of the book here in the store with a cool cover by Zach. Now, tell me a little bit about what the plan is for the book? Is this a one shot? Is it a mini series? How do you have the arcs structured?
So what makes this character so great is that he's it's story wise, it's very easy to work with. So for this book, it's a one shot.
Okay.
The anthology book that I made before is, even though there's a story on him, it's in between adventures that he goes on.
Okay.
I have it on Webtoons. That is a continuing canon arc where it follows Sonderon the minute he got exiled off of his star system.
Okay.
And then I imagined his origin, his hero's journey on the origin story of how he got exiled to get to, in his star system. That's a mini series. And all the adventures and everything else that happens afterwards, those can be continuing comics, So he can be, and because he's an alien and extraterrestrial, like space traveler, he can be anywhere at any point. When you have a creative character and he shows up, that's like, it makes sense because he could be here and then he's leaving to go somewhere else. He's very easy to work with, unlike some characters out there.
So are you guys hoping if let's say April comes, right? You guys are hoping to have these about end of April, I believe was the timeline, kind of, sort of?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to push for March.
Okay.
But it depends. It all depends on how I get those supplies, how long that's taking.
Okay, so let's say these come in April. Fans are ecstatic. They read it. They cannot wait for the next one. What is your hope for the next time you would be able to give them a printed media? If things go your way, Zach, if things go your way.
So if things go away, like, I'm working, once this book is done, I have a couple other projects I'm working on that's outside of this character, but I'm actually working on anthology book number 2. And I'm launching a Kickstarter for that one in January of next year. Okay. So while I'm working on this, I'm getting some stuff. I already have the script ready for that, but I'm working on that at the same time on the side. And I got other people's characters in that too. I got from the Cupid School, so they're going to be part of book number 2. And you're going to see those stories. And the way that anthology book is set up is basically the Crypt Keeper. Sonderon is the Crypt Keeper in Voyage. You're going to have his story, and you're going to have everybody else's story. And it's bigger. The book is going to be big. Nice. It's probably going to be about 100-something pages or so.
Nice. Yeah. I like where you guys are heading. Guys, first of all, Brett, it's nice to finally meet you after all the phone calls. And right. Zach, I have to tell you, from the moment we saw the Kickstarter, from the moment the Kickstarter got put in front of us after Brett emailed us a link, the very first thing that me and my coworkers noticed was the art, man. It's crazy to think that you're just recently out of art school, because it seems like something from somebody who's been doing it for a very, very long time. Your colors are amazing. So I just want to go ahead and give you guys both kudos, for being the first book, or, your first Kickstarter. I'm very optimistic for everything that we're going to be receiving here soon.
Thank you. We have I actually have a special cover planned for you guys. Definitely. And the colors are actually from a student named Adam Quinones. He's my colorist. I just do the black.
Oh, okay, yeah. Beautiful. Well, no, your line work and stuff like that is really good. And then,
thank you.
Especially on your Ghostwriter piece that I believe I saw on the Kickstarter. Oh, yeah. The colors on that were phenomenal. Like the way he got into the skull and everything. I mean, you guys, clearly the Cubert School knows what they're doing, because they're pushing out ultra talented people.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
But where can people? Are you guys on Twitter? Where can people find updates on what you guys are working on?
You can find. You can go on Facebook, Dwarf Star Comics. You can go on my Instagram and Twitter. It's the same handle, Zackary's Art, and I'll type that into the chat too.
Cool. And Brett, are you on the socials, or do you just cold call me and we talk about how much we love comics?
Honestly, I'm still somewhat new to social media. I mean, I do have an Instagram and Twitter. It's just B Melograno. Yeah, I always like to just cold call. You know, that's always worked for me in the past. You know, so but yeah, you know, with the Instagram and stuff, I definitely, you know, will be posting a little bit more these days because after seeing what we've done with the Kickstarter to kind of get the word out, I definitely see how it's definitely an important medium these days. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to give, and granted, we talked very early on in the interview how you know, there's a community. You know, you meet a lot of people when you're creating books, like you said, not just people from the school, but people that you met at conventions, things like that. And honestly, I want to give a shout out to William, because I think that's kind of what got us connected, was that you had been on William's show the night before. He had tagged me in something, and then I get a phone call from you the next day. So huge shout out to William for setting this up.
Yes.
Those guys are awesome. I love people who don't run a store, but are just as supportive of creators as we are here at the store. So I really love it. But guys, thank you so much for your time. I want to wish you the best of luck with the book. I mean, it's already funded. I just hope that you guys sell so many that you don't know what to do with yourselves, and then that we can get that next anthology real soon. You know?
Yeah, it's a lot of work this year, so be prepared, man. There's gonna be a lot coming.
Oh, I'm excited, guys, and honestly, it couldn't happen to two better guys. I cannot wait to see what else you guys bring to the comic industry over the years. I mentioned to Brett, whenever Brett wants to drive up, we are more than willing to have him here for a signing, and that invitation goes to you, Zach. I know New Jersey's a little further, but whenever you guys want to come and sign the books, we will be more than happy to open the doors for you guys.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but the book is Voyage, the Call. It just closed on Kickstarter. We will have copies here in the collective by March or April once these guys get them printed. And like Zach said, we're gonna have a cool special cover, so we can't wait for that. Once Zach has that to me, we'll go ahead and promote it so people can see what it's looking like. But I'm really excited for this book. Two super talented people in Brett Melograno and Zach. You guys take it easy and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
Thanks
man.
a lot. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely, guys. Best of luck. So want to give a special shout out to Brett and Zach, man. Really looking forward to the Voyage, the Call. A lot of cool vibes in that book, sci-fi, everything, and even that backup story, Slothman, has a little bit of alien feels to it. So if you like sci-fi, you like horror, or you just like supporting our collective initiative books, be sure to check that one out. And there's William Sam Quinton, who actually is very responsible for starting the collective initiative. He's actually our first ever book. But yes, that will be on the collective initiative, signed by Zach and Brett. So thank you so much, everybody. And we will see you tomorrow for our collective happy hour auction, and then on our 30th episode next week. Y'all have a good one and take it easy. I've been Danny, and take it easy. We'll see you same time, same place.